Welcome to Autism Insights. I'm Bill Locke, your host, father of a 29-year-old with autism and a volunteer with Autism Calgary.
Having repetitive behavior, so they may have associated problems like OCD, ADHD, anxiety in a way.
What would you do if your life suddenly changed? John Seigner was a successful businessman, but then he had a son with autism.
When my son was about 3 years old, he was diagnosed with autism, something that I didn't even know what autism was. And it was a complete shock to me. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand what the implication was. And suddenly all those expectations that I had as a father and even as a businessman were completely changed. I would describe myself as a maybe not a type A personality, but I owned and operated businesses all my life, and I'm an outcome oriented, goal oriented. I look at everything in terms of expectations. For example, I enrolled both of my kids in a university scholarship fund the day they were born, and we pay into that regularly so that when they're 18 years old there's a bunch of money there so that they can go to university. Well, suddenly that's not an issue. That's not going to happen, right? And so you're then introduced to this completely new world, this world of autism, and you're put in touch with caregivers and administrators and families and individuals that help you through this process, through this voyage. And we had a pretty tough time with my son. He is nonverbal, as I said, and he had some very challenging behaviors when he was younger. We didn't think we'd be able to keep him at home. He acted out quite a bit. He was quite violent, and it was challenging to the point where I, sold my business and literally had to stay home so that I could be my son's caregiver, just because I was the only one that was big enough to handle him. So it really changes your view of the world, your expectations. So through that process, my son eventually matured, as a lot of men do. Not all of us, but many of us mature over time. And he settled down. He was no longer aggressive. And today, he's a sweetheart. He's really not difficult to deal with at all. In fact, he's a pleasure to be with. And I really think of him as my kind of best buddy. We do everything together.
I'd like you to meet Terrance Malkinson, a very good friend of mine. He runs 10 miles a day. Can you imagine? He also found out that he had autism after he turned 65.
Well, I bicycle a lot. In the summer, I'm outdoor cycling. I do 4 or 5 hour road trips outside. And we're fortunate here. We have an excellent pathway system. In the winter, I do indoor cycling. And quite frankly, over the last year, 2020, I've done 10,000 kilometers of cycling. In the winter, it's about 200 kilometers a week. In the summer, it works out to really 300 or 400 kilometers a week of just of biking. And again, when you have autism, you tend to like the individual sports, and the bicycling is something that is an individual sport. I built a spin bicycle laboratory at the back of my house in an old shed that was there. I converted, and I use that for doing some health and wellness research projects. And I have made my kitchen is my bicycle storage room. My front room is bicycle repair. I also have a rack out there. My garage has some punching bags. When I get frustrated, I can get out my frustrations on the heavy bags and the speed bowls, and I have some weight equipment out in the garage also. My backyard is the same thing. I've got hoops and ropes and ladders all over the place. I love being outside. So, because right now with the COVID, I mean, gymnasiums are still open, but they're restricted access and they're restricted times when you can go in there. And I actually need more than that. I train probably 4 hours a day at least.
Meet Dr. Robert J. Wicks, author and psychologist, with encouragement during these troubled times.
People will often say to me, well, I can't wait till we return to the new normal. And I know why people say new normal, because it makes them feel better, you know. But I think a more important thing is to do 2 things. One is to recognize that you need to develop a new habit. What is this schedule offering you now that you haven't had in the past? And some of it you're going to want to take into the future. It's what we call in trauma language a post-traumatic growth. And post-traumatic growth happens when we, on the one hand, recognize what we're up against. We don't spiritually romanticize it, play it down, deny it, avoid it. And denial and avoidance among helpers in particular, because they feel I got to suck it up, you know, kind of thing, is not good. So you recognize the darkness. In the other hand, you hold metaphorically openness to ways that you can go deeper into yourself. You see, post-traumatic growth is the growth that results from trauma and serious stress in ways that would not have been possible had the trauma or stress not happened in the first place. So on a basic level, I say to people, why would you waste your suffering? In my language, I call it spiritual sadness. It makes no sense. You know, if you're going to go through something, you know, Taya Desjardins used to say, it doesn't matter if the water is cold or hot, if you got to go through it anyway, you know. So if you're going to go through all this difficulty with children and spouse and friends and family and government and whatever, then lean back, you know, lean back so you can reflect and renew and re-enter. And so I think that we're in a winter solstice, spiritually and psychologically. We can see the darkness. We have been in the darkness, but we also can see the light. But I think to take advantage of it, we need to be reflective in the right way. When you sit in that period Avoid 3 dark alleys. The first is arrogance, where you blame everybody else. If you give away the blame, it's fun, but then you give away the power. Second, ignorance, where you're condemning yourself. There makes no sense in condemning yourself. I said, and you're going to stop doing the space, because behavior that you wince at will turn into behavior that you wink at. You're not going to do it. And third, you're going to become discouraged. Instead, go to that quiet time with the spirit of intrigue about yourself and what is going on and how you can change things. You can prune your schedule, so that you're available in the right way. And I think we all need to do that. And it leads to a theme that you're interested in, which is contentment.
Coming up on Autism Insights, an interview with Dr. Joel Christie, an expert on how to deal with social isolation.
There's nothing like getting outside and going for a walk or being healthy. Get your mask on, protect properly, and get out and get the sunshine in your face to do something.
And Lyndon Parakin, not only the executive director of Autism Calgary, but the father of 2 adult sons with autism.
Because I think there are so many generalizations and stereotypes that we all make about autism that we kind of forget to look at the person.
That's it for today. Join us again for Autism Insights. I'm your host, Bill Locke.